Riverside.
Welcome to the Philly Real Estate Special, Episode 1. I am your host, Dan Kiley. Alongside me is Tom Stelzer. Tom, how's it going on this fine Monday night?
It's going great, Dan. How we living?
We're living good. I'm happy to be in air conditioning. It is 102 degrees here in Houston. It's day 16 of triple-digit weather, so I can't wait for football season, to be quite honest with you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty well. It's 93 degrees here in Orlando, so I know a little bit about the heat. Maybe not as hot as it's been over there in Houston, but still a little bit hot. It's been hot kind of throughout the country from what I've been seeing. So hopefully, everywhere it starts to cool down here in a little bit.
Absolutely. Excited to start this podcast, the Philly Real Estate Special. You really came up with the name of our podcast, and would love to kind of get your thoughts behind it and really kind of give an introduction to our audience.
Yeah, it took some time. Dan and I went back and forth for a couple of days there trying to think of the best name. We're obviously, we grew up outside of Philly. We're diehard Birds fans, so we wanted to tie, the Birds into our name somehow. And, what better way than, the Philly Special, one of the most iconic plays in Philadelphia sports history. So we named it the Philly Real Estate Special. And famous quote from Brandon Turner is, "Why do people always not get started in real estate? And they give up," is the reason. And, took a lot of courage for Doug Peterson to go with that call. And, it takes a lot of courage to get started in real estate. So felt like it was a fitting name. We're going to be talking mainly about real estate, but we'll have some Philadelphia Eagles and sports thrown in here. Try to limit the James Harden conversation, though, for sure.
Yeah, that's something that I woke up to, was the James Harden calling Daryl Morey a liar. But I love the name of our podcast, the Philly Real Estate Special. I think the biggest part of real estate is being willing to take a risk to get started. And you're going to have mistakes. You're going to have things that might not add up, but it's just learning and growing through the process. So a little background on myself. I grew up in Downingtown, Pennsylvania. Tom and I met up in Dallas, Pennsylvania, at Misericordia.
Roll Cougs, baby.
Roll Cougs, yes. And I was in telecom sales for about 4 or 5 years out of college, still living in Downingtown, and then joined the Alera Group and moved down to Houston back in January of 2022. So love it down here. And Tom, you want to give a little more background on you?
Yeah, I grew up Dan's rival high school, Coatesville, Pennsylvania. I think we kind of just always beat up on Downingtown, so I don't know if it's much of a rivalry.
I don't think so.
It's been a battle. Anyway, we met at Misericordia, both played football there, became roommates, became best friends, and kind of kept growing from there. I started at Comcast Business about 7 years ago. I've been working there. Recently, kind of took the summer off. Moved to Orlando, Florida. And I've been here for about a year now, and looking forward to starting a new job at ADP coming up here at the end of the month. So,
definitely exciting stuff. So, really, we just wanted to give some brief introductions on who we are and talk about real estate. Financial freedom is the end goal, right? We'll kind of dive in to talk about why we love real estate so much and what to expect in future episodes. All right, Tom. So let's dive in a little deeper with how you got started in real estate and really what made you want to create this podcast and really your true passion.
Yeah, I think I've always been really passionate about real estate. It started, probably back in 2016, 2017. And I know everybody I talk to about real estate, whether it's you or my brother-in-law, Tyler Brown, are probably the two people I talk to about it the most. And now we're both real estate investors. And I just thought the more people I could talk to real estate or talk to about real estate, the better for me, just to keep learning and growing, and also encouraging other people to try and get into real estate investing. Because to me, it seems like one of the best ways to get to financial freedom, to be able to retire at a younger age than most people are thinking. So I really wanted to talk about real estate as much as I could. And I've already seen a bunch of people have been reaching out to us, asking us to be on the podcast, and really looking forward to interviewing certain people and letting everybody know how many others are actually invested in real estate that you might not think, and getting a lot of other people's stories, and really just trying to help spread the word about real estate investing. And my journey started way back, 2017. I was listening to a ton of Dave Ramsey. I was really obsessed with personal finance, and the stories, or the podcasts of his that intrigued me the most were always the guy that's like, I got $100,000 saved up, or $100,000 of debt, but I have 3 rental properties and I'm trying to pay one off. And Dave says, well, pay off all, or sell the rental properties, pay off all your debt. And I'm like, well, Dave, is that really the smartest thing? Or is it smarter if they kept the rental properties and were making the money? And
Right.
then, so from there, I was like, well, maybe real estate investing is really good. And somebody on Dave Ramsey's podcast mentioned Bigger Pockets podcast. And so I started listening to a ton of their episodes, and then really just seeing how these people were just average individuals and started investing in real estate, and their lives took off, their careers took off, and what they were able to do in real estate was incredible to me. So that's really what made me want to get into real estate. And then our buddies Austin Denarowitz and Chris Hutter, they were looking for a house. They were 5th years, getting ready to play their 5th year of college football. They both had some injuries, and I was back up at school after graduating. I took my job at Comcast and saved all my money, and said, hey, Hutter, Austin, what if I just bought a house and you guys kind of moved in and rented some rooms for me? And they were all on board. And I was like, wow, this is awesome. They're on board, because at first I was a little scared to just buy a house by myself anyway and be able to afford the mortgage and everything else. So bought a house, and Austin and Hutter moved in, and actually then Joy Mack ended up being our 4th roommate, because it was a 4-bedroom house. And it was beautiful. I was able to live there. I think they kind of covered the mortgage. I wasn't making too much else on top of that, but just really opened my eyes to how great real estate investing could be. And that's how I got started, and don't ever want to go back.
Yeah. So you started in 2017 and asked a couple of our former teammates to live in a house that you bought. Now, present day now, how many properties do you have currently?
I have 5 houses, 4 rentals. One is my primary residence here in Orlando. And then I'm part of TDJ, and we have 5 properties there as well. So
Exactly.
10 total properties.
That's awesome. And it started all in 2017. And, sounds like you're on the pathway to financial freedom. So
Yeah,
that's
my goal was to have 17 properties by 30, and I'm at 10, and I turned 30 in a month and a half. So didn't hit my goal, but there's still time to get there.
there's still
Where I'm
time.
40. So yeah.
I mean, unless you can find a seven property deal in a month, you might fall a little short, which is all right.
Yeah. And one of our houses is a duplex, so some people would call that 11 units instead of 10, but it is what
Right.
it is.
Yeah. I feel like people have different definitions of what's what's a unit by itself and what's just one unit. Some people go by
Yeah.
doors, different things like that. So it's really cool to see how you got into real estate at such a young age. My background, or my journey in the real estate investing world, was started in 2018. So a year after Tom. Tom was actually texting me constantly. I was working at Granite Telecommunications, living at home with mom and dad, saving money, investing in the stock market, different things among that nature. And Tom's like, hey, I'm looking for somebody to partner with in real estate. And I was like, that sounds great. Where are we going to invest? up in Dallas, Pennsylvania, which is awesome. You know, rented out to kids that go to our alma mater, and I decided to bring my dad into our business, TDJ Investments, and I'm pretty sure my dad found our first property. For it was a nice little townhome, and that kind of just started the snowball effect of really getting into real estate and just learning about all the different options that kind of comes with it. So we threw some money into that. We hit some bumps in the road, but now, as you mentioned, TDJ's at 5 properties, and you know, throughout college, I sold Cutco kitchen knives. So the my mindset has always been being an entrepreneur and trying to not work for 40 years until I'm 65 and then retire. And you know, now what? You know, I would much rather be able to go travel at a younger age, and kind of have that time, money, and freedom, you know, to kind of, cool, I'm going to go travel to Europe or go travel wherever. Go golfing. You know, that's something that I picked up here recently. But
Yeah,
all that being said,
shout out Jeff Kiley for
yeah,
finding our first house. And so, Dan, what
finding our,
was your go ahead?
no, go ahead.
What was your you're talking about bumps in the road. So do you remember when we bought Richards and we had it rented out to college students for I think 2 years? And I thought I was super badass, and I went through and I read all the bylaws and I'm triple checking. So we bought this property in an HOA, a homeowners association, and they told us we couldn't rent to college students. And I said, well, I read the bylaws and it says 4 people, blood related or less is fine. And I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, this is perfect. So we can rent to college students, just no more than 4. And so we had college students in there for 2 years, and they were not happy about it. And we ended up getting summoned to a meeting, and they tell us, hey, you know what? We changed the bylaws. It's 2 people, blood related or less, that can live in a home. And so your college kids, even though we like them, they've been great people, great tenants, really helped the community out. You can no longer rent to them. And so we got kicked out of doing that, and we had to pivot extremely quickly. And
So
luckily
quick.
we did. But that's
Yeah.
real
Yeah.
estate investment for you.
Yeah, it was really interesting because we had those kids in there for, I want to say 2 years, right around two
Yep.
years, maybe a year and a half. And they're like, hey, they got to get out. So luckily, we found our second property and
Yep.
had them move in right then and there, which was great. And then we had I believe, a graduate assistant at the time, right? Move into
Yeah.
Richards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So
believe. Yep.
anyway, that being said, there's always going to be bumps in the road when it comes to real estate. It's how you pivot and how you kind of react. You don't want to overreact because that's
Yeah.
probably the worst thing possible. I think, just take a deep breath and weigh out your options and try to, make stuff happen, right?
Yeah.
At the end
I'm
of the day,
excited.
that's,
Yeah. I'm excited to share more stories like that. So many people are like, oh, I could never invest in real estate. It's too scary. It's got this problem, that problem, and they can go through the laundry list of issues. But at the end of the day, you're going to have, hiccups and bumps in the road and, any aspect of life that you're involved in, even if you're just investing in the stock market. I mean, most people's stock market portfolios dropped, what, 30 or 40%, or more during COVID. So you're going to
well,
have bumps in the road
exactly.
no matter what. And so, real estate investing has a bunch of scary notations around it, and it's really, really not as bad as people make it out to be.
Yeah, there's well, going through COVID, or being, in our houses, and that was the one thing that we talked about every single day was the stock market. That was the one thing that was on because there was no sports, there was nothing.
Yeah,
It was just, let's watch the stock market. And at one point, you know, my retirement account was down 95%. It was insane.
insane.
And then it bounced back up clearly, but that being said, it was just like, you know, that's really all we could have done at that time was watch the stock market, and that's and then just read about real estate and kind of continue to grow TDJ to where it is now. Um,
Yep.
there are some people in my, I guess, networking circle. They're not very they're not big risk takers. I think with real estate, you want to have some skin in the game. You have to be willing to take that kind of a leap of faith, that first jump, right?
Yeah.
If you're not going to take that jump, then it's kind of like you might want to just be on the sidelines and just kind of
Yeah.
keep learning. I don't know.
Yeah, there's a risk reward with everything, right? And stock market's still a risk and reward, and we've seen slightly better returns in our opinions, and the numbers can back that up in real estate investing. But to your point, it is a little bit more risky. There's a chance you might have to replace a roof or a furnace or a kitchen, and
Or have a whole house just leak, right?
yeah, yeah,
So
on Christmas to add to it. But hey, at the end of the day, we're still here and better because of it. So, there's risk with everything that you do.
absolutely, absolutely. So Tom, if you were to have, say, $20,000 now, would you invest it in the stock market or would you invest it in real estate?
I'm in a different spot in life, and I'm really trying to come up with the best way to retire earlier. So right now, I'm trying to put as much money as I can in real estate. I really like, being able to rent out properties and being a landlord. Or shout out Casey. He's kind of our landlord right now. He's doing a great job as our property manager, which makes our lives a lot easier, so we can focus more on the growth aspect of real estate, which is what I love and what I enjoy is trying to, come up with creative ways to buy a property, add value in that property, and pull out that equity. So
Mm-hmm.
uh, I'm a little bit biased currently, but I'm trying to put as much money as I can in real estate at the moment. How about you?
I would say if you're looking to maximize your return on your investment, I think real estate's is the best way. That being said, it has to be the right deal. You have to crunch the numbers. There's a lot that goes into it, but I think you could throw money in the stock market and in 40 years you'll probably be a millionaire. Most likely. Just compound investing the whole 9 yards. A much If you do it the right way, I think it's a much quicker way to really grow your net worth tenfold. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I mean, on top of that, doing the numbers and the research. And so say if you become a millionaire and you have $1 million in your bank account, I mean, typically the rule of thumb is the 4% rule, right? So 4% rule is if you have $1 million, well, so that $1 million doesn't, go to zero, you can't just pull it all out when you retire. You can live off 4% of that to really let it kind of stay at status quo and go up and down and float around that number. So the 4% rule, you're living off of $40,000 a year. Uh, and so that's, not a ton of money for retirement to be able to live maybe the lifestyle that, I know Sarah and I are going to want to live. And that's what
Mm-hmm.
makes me like real estate so much more is that you can buy a property today on a 20 or 30-year mortgage. And, by the time that's paid off, one property can almost be getting you $30,000 a year. So you have two or three of those, now you're making, more money and you put significantly less money into those properties compared to buying or not buying, yeah, well, buying stocks and putting your money in the stock market to become a millionaire that way to retire on a lot less. So at least that's my mindset. I think that I can get more money from real estate sooner and then retire a little bit earlier versus putting a lot more money into the stock market and not necessarily being able to retire until I'm 60.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think we have similar mindsets, which is why we've been able to be pretty good business partners, with TDJ. So, question that just kind of popped in my head: Where do you see yourself and your real estate journey in the next 5 years?
It's a great question. I had some personal things just with moving to Florida. It was a lot more expensive than I thought it would be. But so I'm really looking forward to buying. My goal for 30 was 17 properties. I'm at 10 right now, 11 depending on who you ask. So I think my goal is still to get to 17. I'd love to be a part of 17 rentals. So, within the next 5 years, and I think that's definitely doable with the knowledge and things that I know now. The market's a little bit trickier to buy right now, just with the way interest rates have been. So that's kind of causing me to take a step back for a little bit of time. But that's where I see myself. I want to be at 17 rental properties, and it's not that far away.
Why 17? If you don't mind me asking, is that just a
I think
favorite number?
Yeah, 17 was always my favorite number for whatever reason. Braylon Edwards, actually, he wore number one as well. This is obviously a Jalen Hurts jersey, but Braylon Edwards wore number one at Michigan. That's how I became a Michigan fan. And then he went to Cleveland and he wore number 17. And I thought that was the
Mm.
most fire jersey I've ever seen in my life. And so 17 was kind of always my favorite number, but I was always too fat to fit into that jersey. So
Mm.
I kind of always wore the 87. Shout out Brent Selleck.
Yeah, interesting. So, um, so right now you're at 10 or 11 properties. Um, would you do you know what kind of properties you're looking to expand into? Like whether it's like a multifamily apartment complex, because that's more than, depending on who you ask, that's more than just one property by itself.
Yeah, I mean, right now I've definitely bought a ton of single family homes. I mean, that's almost all that I own, and I'm actually looking to sell one of my single family homes and try to move up and get into larger multi-unit properties. That just the way the cash flow works out, especially with the way interest rates are a little bit higher now, I see myself trying to stream a little bit more up market. For whatever reason, now I was more scared to do that, and then with what we just did with TDJ over the last year. Kind of feel like we can handle anything at this point. Kind of basically bought almost four properties. I know it's two, but the way that they're, the size of them, it almost felt like it was four. And to manage all that at one time, I really see myself swimming a little bit more up market and trying to get better cash flow on some
Yeah,
multifamilies.
I- understood. Yeah, and just going back to your point on the last two properties we bought with TDJ, they're technically I guess they're considered two single families,
Well, the one,
or one's
no,
like a multi-use.
yeah, I think Mill is multi. I think that's two.
Yeah,
That's a
but
duplex for sure. But Machel is more or less
it's
just
just
a
a
mansion.
mansion.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah, yeah, and it's funny. It's 4,000 square feet, and we have 8 Misericordia Cougars living there right now.
yeah. And I
Um,
could see us I
and
could see us changing that to a duplex one day, just because of the sheer size. I mean, I think it's actually like 4,600 square feet.
yeah,
So we can kind of split that up two ways, and 2,300 square feet each, and make it 4 bed, 2 bath, and make it a duplex. So I think in the
yeah,
future, that's definitely something we can look at doing at that house.
absolutely, absolutely. Let's see. I'm trying to think about if I have any other questions off the top of the head, but it sounds like some exciting things are happening.
Yeah. So how many guests do you think you have lined up, or who are you excited to talk to the most on the podcast?
So let's see. So I have a friend of mine who real estate agent I use to help me find my apartment right now. Sydney Ann Dove, shout out her. She's awesome. She went to Alabama, Roll Tide,
All
apparently.
Todd, baby.
Yeah. So we're actually in the process of trying to find hopefully a duplex down here in Houston by the end of this year.
Go,
So we're in
Dan.
the
Let's
process of
go.
that.
I've
So
been
she
begging you to
said she
do
would
that
hop
for how
on.
long?
Oh, dude, yeah, it's been a little bit. So she said she was willing to come on, and she really knows the market, knows her stuff when it comes to the Houston market. She's been in the market for 4 or 5 years, I think. I have another
Wow.
friend, Charlie, who's on the. He's been here in Houston, just bought a house out in Fulshire, which is west of Houston, and him and his wife just bought a house built from the ground up, and he's on the commercial side, which would be an interesting perspective to see
Yeah.
um, what's going on in the commercial world, because I've been reading articles. There's these large companies that are trying to minimize their office space. So yeah, so my buddy Charlie, Sydney Ann, Jeff Kiley said he would come on depending on if we're able to meet his appearance fee. So,
Well, it's gonna be pretty
so
pricey, I
yeah,
can imagine.
so those are three guests that I think would be really ideal. How about you? Do you have anybody lined up or
Yeah, I
anybody
mean,
that you haven't told me about?
I couldn't be more thankful for all the friends, family, people that have reached out to me just about the podcast and that, want to be on here. And, there's a ton of people in my mind that don't know they're going to be on here yet that I can't wait to reach out and ask. And I think the coolest part is just to be able to talk to, say random people, but people that might not know are real estate investors. I mean, I think it's really cool for you and I to open up, about our journeys and what we've done in real estate investing, and excited to find more people on the streets that are kind of doing the same thing, and show people that it's not that hard or that scary.
Yeah,
But so I have Zach Conensberg is a good buddy of ours. He's a loan officer. He's helped me buy several of my houses. Shout out Zach. He's been amazing. So if anybody needs a loan, I definitely recommend using him. Um, and so he's one person I'm excited to have on here. My brother-in-law, Tyler Brown, has been he's very, very knowledgeable, very computer savvy. He builds spreadsheets and things all the time. But he just bought his own duplex here 2 or 3 months ago, and so he's really
nice.
starting his real estate investing journey. I'm proud of him and taking care of my sister, so it means the world to me. But yeah, I'm excited. He said he'll hop on. Love hearing his perspectives. He's out in Baltimore, a little bit outside. And then this is a pretty cool one for me. I didn't think that I'd get somebody like this, but my buddy Jason Altopsky, he's a real estate investor and also a dentist out in Wilkes-Barre or Kingston area.
Oh,
And
nice.
he's an absolute stud. That guy has so much knowledge. Unfortunately, he is a Patriots fan, so we're gonna have to take everything he says with a grain of salt. But he's very, very
So
smart, man. And so he reached out to me and said he, would love to hop on the podcast. And that's really what I think is so exciting about this, is that that's somebody I've wanted to talk to about real estate for like, say 4 years. And for whatever reason, I've never had the conversation with him, never really got it. And now, he's reaching out to me to hop on the podcast and talk about real estate. And so I'm very excited. So shout out Jason. Can't wait to have you on.
that's awesome. And then so I had the honor of creating our Twitter account, and so I follow Resilient REI on Twitter. It's another guy named Dan. He has 5 properties out in the Midwest, one being a house hack, and he's actually coming up with a podcast himself called Landlord Horror Stories. That's going to be out on the 29th, which I'm super excited for. So he said he would hop on the pod as well. And then there's a real estate investor who's helped manage over $100 million in real estate up in the Fort Worth, Dallas area.
Oh,
His name's Joel. So I've been talking with him, direct messages back and forth, and said, hey, my business partner and I were creating this podcast. Would love for you to give it a follow and hop on as a guest. He said, you bet. So
let's go, baby.
that would be
Let's
a
go.
really cool episode. So stay tuned for that. What else are we going to talk about on this podcast here, Tom?
Honestly, I mean, I love getting to talk about real estate even more. So that's going to be, one thing I'm excited to talk about. But definitely going to have to throw in some Eagles talk, here and there, even just football in general. I mean, obviously, Eagles fans get a bad rap, oh, they don't know anything. They're just arrogant. They're dumb, yada, yada. But I mean, between you and I, we're actually extremely knowledgeable from the, a football perspective. We're not really, I don't think we fit the perfect mold of, those arrogant Eagles fans to an extent. I think, I mean, some days maybe, but
Super Bowl?
but no, I won't mind talking a little bit about the NFL for sure. Fantasy football, things of that nature. We might throw some things in there, and I'll be interested to ask our guests who their favorite football teams are, where they think their teams are going to be this season, and kind of go from there. How about you? What else do you want to kind of talk about?
Different strategies when it comes to real estate. with TDJ, we've done the the Burr method.
Mhm.
So we'll kind of dive into that. House hacking would be something that I'd be interested in talking to somebody like you about because I haven't done it yet. Um, House hacking, maybe. I have a buddy who I sold kitchen knives with. He created his own wholesaling business down here in Houston.
Wow.
So I'd love to kind of pick his brain on what, or really his mindset of like to become a wholesaler and really to create a strong business like that. There's a bunch of other things too. Like I've met a couple of people that have done Airbnbs,
Yeah,
short term rentals.
just flipping
So
houses in general
um,
too.
yeah, absolutely. So honestly, there's going to be a different episodes that have different strategies and different guests. So I think moving forward, I think one thing that would be really cool is to talk about, for example, the Burr method and have a guest that has done that,
Yeah. No,
or
that'd be great.
um, so I think that's something that I'm excited for. I'm excited to because we're filming this on a Monday, so depending on when the Eagles do play, would love to kind of just talk, maybe do a quick, recap of the game and what your thoughts were and what I mean. We could even dive into the schedule when it gets closer to see what your prediction is.
Yeah.
I mean,
No, that'd be great. But I mean, to your
that's
point, I want to talk about a bunch of real estate investing strategies for sure. And the biggest one really being the house hacking. I think a lot of people that, are going to listen to this, if anybody at all, really just want to stress getting into real estate investing in general. And there's really no better way than house hacking. And you don't need a ton of money up front. A lot, it's a huge misconception that you need a ton of money down to buy a home. And so really getting people to learn more about house hacking and help take over, their financial futures by buying, maybe a duplex and renting out the other side and just doing it for a year or two and saving up more money and then moving out and then just kind of repeating that for several years. If I can convince one person to do that, then this podcast will be a success. And I'm looking at you, Dan. You're the one person. So as long as you do this, I'll be happy. I'm just really excited to help people learn about real estate and really, help them with their financial futures from a real estate investment perspective.
yeah. I think real estate's a great way to really diversify your investments, right? Instead of just throwing all your eggs in the stock market and hoping that it goes up over time. Um, it could be a riskier investment, but if you have an appetite for risk, if you want to, go all in, so to speak, I think real estate's a great way to do it. And kind of like what you said, if this podcast can help one person, whether it's myself or somebody in our family, friends network to kind of take that jump to invest in real estate, then I think it's a success. I mean, you know, I don't know where this podcast is going to go, but I'm excited to talk about it and get some other people on the as guests and really see if we can take, kind of grow this thing.
I mean, hey, worst case scenario, we're going to talk to a bunch of people about real estate. And so, that's going to be friends and family and, anybody I can think of that, talks about real estate. I'm going to, try to get them on this podcast and interview them and ask them questions and just grow my perspective on real estate. And, I don't do too much in the short-term rental game right now, but I live here in Orlando. It's, pretty big in this market and Tampa and some of the surrounding areas. So
Especially Disney, right?
yeah. I live very close to
Yeah.
Disney. I actually live closer to Disney than Orlando. So short-term rental is something I want to study a lot more and learn about. And so, the more I can learn about that, it's going to be, a plus for me. So I'm really excited.
That's awesome. All right, Tom. So I think the first episode of the Philly Real Estate Special was a success. What do we have in store for next week's episode?
Any conversation about real estate is a success in my book. But next week, I'm excited to do a TDJ deep dive. Really let everybody know what TDJ Investments is all about. Tom, Dan, Jeff, how we got started. I know we touched on that a little bit, but how we've grown from that first property that we purchased and, had some issues with the HOA and, turned that into 5 properties, 6 total units. and what's next for TDJ and where we plan to grow that company. That's what's next week. And so, Dan, where can people find us?
So people can find us on YouTube at the Philly Real Estate Special, Instagram, the Philly Real Estate Special, TikTok. We are on TikTok at the Philly RE Special. And last but not least, we are on X, and that is TPRES 4687. Why is it 4687, Tom?
Those are our football numbers, baby. 4, 6,
Roll
8,
Cougs.
7.
Absolutely.
Four
And
ways to find us.
those are the 4 ways to find us. So like, comment, subscribe. This will be out tomorrow, August 15th. And stay tuned for next week's episode with Jeff Kiley and the breakdown of TDJ Investments. For episode 1 of the Philly Real Estate Special, this is Dan Kiley.
This is Tom Stelzer signing off.
Powered by Riverside.
Snowy.
Go Birds!